Hi, this is Larry up in Brandon, Minnesota. I want to tell you a little story. You know, I've had a lifelong love of probably the king of the worms, the Canadian nightcrawler. You know, as a kid growing up in northwest Iowa, Sheldon, Iowa, I was probably 6 or 7 years old. And we had nightcrawlers, you know, such rich black dirt down there. My dad always said Iowa ground is so rich that when you throw a seed down, you had to jump back. But we used to pick nightcrawlers because every weekend, my dad and all his brothers and sisters lived around that area. We'd head up to Spirit Lake, Okoboji, and we would camp on Lake Okoboji, pay a farmer to camp there. And every Friday night, it was a trek up there with all the families, and we would stay up there and camp and fish. And we always picked our own nightcrawlers to take our own bait, of course. Well, I was about 6 or 7 years old. My brother Steve, he's a year younger than me. And we wanted a pony. We lived right on the edge of Sheldon, just as you leave town, right on the highway there. And we told our dad and mom we wanted a pony. And they said, well, you know, we got nightcrawlers over the yard. People like buying them. So we started picking nightcrawlers at night. And then we had a little refrigerator right by the little shop Dad had there, and we put our nightcrawlers in it, and we'd sell them. Geez, I can't even remember how much back then. It wasn't very much. My mom ended up helping us most of the time, picking a lot of them at night. But anyway, we ended up getting this little Shetland pony, mean as hell. But that started off my affair with nightcrawlers. And I was aware of them and knew how to pick them, picked them as a kid, picked them my whole life. Well, years later, I'm living in Brainerd, Minnesota, and we're living in a little house down by the lake. And I was just had moved back from North Dakota, and we were here, and I was looking for something to do. And I started thinking about these nightcrawlers again, and because I know there was lots of them in our yard. It was old river bottom, it was black dirt. And I was picking them, thinking, you know, boy, there's a lot of, you know, and this was 1988. I remember it exactly because it was a drought that year, and nightcrawler prices had gone through the roof. They were having a trouble getting them out of Canada, which is where most of your commercial nightcrawlers come from. It's a big operation up there. They take hundreds and hundreds of pickers out at night on these fields and pick nightcrawlers, and then they ship them down to the United States. It's perfect growing conditions up there for nightcrawlers, and then they haul them down here. So anyway, we're picking some, and I'm trying some different. I read probably every book by Charlie Morgan that was ever out there. There's a guy that wrote books years and years ago about raising nightcrawlers and trying to raise them. He claimed he'd raised some in coffee cans in a cave, and I read everything I get. Then I got my hands on Ray Edwards wrote the definitive book on the nightcrawler called the Nightcrawler Manual. He studied nightcrawlers for a good portion of his life, and they were always fascinating to me. So I've studied all that. Well, we're picking nightcrawlers the traditional way. And my uncle had built these shockers. A little dangerous. I don't recommend it, but they work. And we had these shockers that you would take a rod and then we'd put a wooden handle on. We'd run the electrical cord and we'd wet the ground, and then we'd stick them in the ground and plug it in, and nightcrawlers would come up. It worked pretty good. And anyway, that summer I was looking for some work. I ended up doing construction, and I was putting an underground cable. I'm down in Dubuque, Iowa, not making a lot of money. And my wife is back up here on the lake there, in a little house we had. And I called back and I said, boy, she ain't making much money. She said, well, I did yesterday. And I said, what? Well, she shocked up and harvested and packaged up $300 worth of nightcrawlers and hauled them up to a bait shop. I said, no way. She said, yeah. And then she said, and I got another $300 packed up worth of nightcrawlers today. I'm hauling up again. I said, I'm on my way back. So I came back and I started doing this with her, and we started getting involved. And it's eventually how I got in the live bait business. I was in that for quite a few years. Trapped some of my own leeches, minnows. I had invented a live bait system that I put in multiple accounts. And then, of course, I serviced them with the bait. Why I'm going through this whole ordeal about night crawlers, I'm studying. I'm thinking, gee, is there any other ways that I'm missing on harvesting night crawlers? I'm familiar with picking them the traditional way with a headlamp, or use a little yellow or a red cellophane over top so it don't spare, and the shocking. So I go down to the library and I'm reading every book I can get, old issues of Outdoor Life and Sports Appeal, and I'm reading the classifieds in the back. And I run across this guy in Idaho Falls, Idaho, this Gary. And this guy had come up with a solution for harvesting night crawlers. And I couldn't hardly believe it. He says, harvest night crawlers in seconds with easy solution method. So I got a hold of the guy and I said, what are you talking about? What is this? He said, let me tell you a little story. He said, my neighbor hated night crawlers because of all the bumps, the castings you get. You can tell where night crawlers are. Do I have night crawlers? Just go out and you'll see the castings or the bumps there. And this neighbor friend of his hated them, because every time he mowed his yard, he ran into his bumps. So he took a 55-gallon plastic barrel and threw some bleach in it, filled with water, and dumped it over. Man, night crawlers come out like crazy. Well, he just wanted to kill them. And Gary's thinking, wow, what a way to harvest night crawlers, if I can come up with a way to do it that don't harm them or anything else. So he got together with a chemist buddy of them, and they come up with an irritant that they could put in a small amount in water. It would mix with water and dump it over, and in 20 seconds in the middle of the day, night crawlers come out of the ground like spaghetti. Incredible. And I'm thinking, no way, this comes some kind of scam or something. So Gary sends me a VHS tape back then, of course. I pop it in. It's the local news station doing an interview on him. He has got people all over this town. He is selling them gallons of the solution. They go out and harvest the night crawlers, and they bring them to him. And at that time, he would pay them $2.50 a pound. And these people on a good night could pick, and an average person could make $15, $20. Well, this is, 20-some years ago. That was pretty good money. He had paid out to his pickers at $2.50 a pound, by the middle of June, already $250,000. And then he was taking them all, putting them in flats and marking them to bait dealers and wholesalers all over the Midwest. Well, I got some of the solution. And did it work? Oh, it worked phenomenal. And I'm picking night crawlers all over and start. So now I'm really excited. So I get this big idea. I'm going to go to Iowa where there's lots of night crawlers, because it's spotty around in Minnesota. There's sand. But I know there's night crawlers everywhere in Iowa. So what do? I get a 2-ton truck with a 1,500-gallon water tank on the back and a 5-horse gas motor, so I can back up, drop a hose in the lake or river, pump it full of water, and dump a gallon of the solution and spray on the ground, and night crawlers are coming up like spaghetti. So I get down in Iowa. I'm going down. Matter of fact, the same little town I grew up as a kid, Sheldon, Iowa. Well, I'm harvesting some night crawlers around there myself, and I'm trying to get the Boy Scout troops and everybody involved. And kids nowadays don't want to work. We got funding, we get people give us money, or I try to get local people that I said, you can make about $15, $20 an hour, and you farm kids down there, well, we get, Dad bought me a new car, and they just did not want to work. So it was down to what I could harvest myself. This is what happened while I was down there, and it's very interesting. And this is where I'm leading with this story. While I'm down there in Sheldon, Iowa, next to the tracks is a soybean mill. Well, about a half a block away, there's a big water tank with a bunch of black dirt all the way around it. No vegetation at all, just black dirt around this water tank. And every afternoon while I'm down there, I would drive by there and I would see by this water tank a white covering. It looked like snow almost. Well, what it was about a 1/4 inch of this soybean meal, because they ground soybeans there, and it would drift over and just make it look like snow on there. But every morning when I would get up to go up and have breakfast uptown and drive by there, it'd be spotless. It'd be gone. And I thought, what the heck is going on? Well, that night it was raining a little bit. I thought, geez, I wonder, is it night crawlers over there? Maybe they're eating that. I go over there, and I'm really familiar, because I've done it for years, of what a night crawler hole looks like. It's about the size of a pencil, or sometimes just a little bit larger. These holes are almost the size of a nickel. I mean, it's, I'm thinking, no, this ain't night crawlers, and there's some kind of rodent or moles or something. So I dump my solution on these holes, which goes down the hole, because night crawlers live in tunnels, and it gets on their skin, and out of the ground come the most enormous night crawlers. I mean, they look like freaks I have ever seen. Big around as my thumb and 12 inches long, and they look like gardener snakes. I had never in all my life seen that. I mean, they're too big to fish with. I mean, they are absolutely human. So I'm on my way. I figured that this is not working down here. I can't get people to work. So I'm headed back. So I brought a bunch of these back. And I showed them to my wholesale bait dealer friends and everything. People that had been in the business for 50, 60 years, and you could barely put one in a cup. One. And I've always had that embedded in the back of my mind. I've always remembered what made those night crawlers so enormous. I know what it is. It was a daily feeding of cornmeal, the soybean meal that was blown over on this area. There was no other food vegetation for them to eat. In nature, a night crawler comes up at night on rainy nights and then eats some leaves or grass and takes it back down, and it will live in that night crawler for years and will not move unless there's either heavy rains or it can't find a night crawler close enough to mate with. Otherwise, it can live there for years, according to Ray Edwards, who wrote the book on Nightcrawler Man. He claimed that he'd personally watched one for, it was unbelievable, 10, 12 years. He'd marked this on the same Nightcrawler. It was incredible. They're tunnel dwellers. They live in the same place and won't go unless they're really motivated to move. So I'm thinking this. Well, right now I'm putting together a series and I got in the bait business, and then I had an experience with European night crawlers and composting, and it's evolved. And while I'm doing some research, I'd always thought this in the back of my mind. I'm looking at some YouTube videos. This Dave Stumpf over in Wisconsin, I see a video on setting up a night crawler bed. He's setting it up. And he's thinking along the same lines as I am, creating an environment for them, and they'll come. And that's exactly what Dave's done. I got a link here I'll put to his YouTube channel, and you can check it out. Dave's one heck of a guy. So I messaged him. I said, Dave, I'd love to talk to you. This is the kind of stuff I love. And I talked to him for about an hour, hour and a half on the phone. Dave's a great guy. Check out his channel. Dave shows you how he took an area. He digs it down about a foot, and he explains on the video, and fills it with organic matter and some of his own compost, and I think some of his own chicken scrapings and things, and waters it and keeps in ideal condition, and all his night crawlers around the area just flock to this. Unbelievable. Well, in my area where I live, it's pretty sandy, so I really don't have perfect conditions, but I do have a big hole that I had when I was in the light bait business where I had held minnows. So I'm filling that all in with black dirt, which is 10, 15 feet deep. And then what I'm going to do is this. And this I think you could do. If you had a place where you got black dirt and a clay subsoil, this would work for you. It's like if you had a pig and I had a pig. You let your pig run around the woods or wherever, just scrounging around, and mine's in a feed lot and I'm feeding it everything it can get every night. Let's compare pigs in a week or a month. There'll be no comparison. The same thing with the night crawlers. If you set up an area, and I'll frame in an area of maybe 10 by 10, 12 by 12, with 1 by 12s and go up about 6 inches in the ground. And once the night crawlers go down a tunnel, if you keep perfect conditions, they're not going nowhere. I'll take the same thing, as I'll have an area and I'll put down some good leaves and some other grain, because I've soybean meal and things like that, because I've seen the results. I'm going to have a sprinkler come on every night for like 15 minutes. Because when night crawlers have perfect conditions like that, they'll come up every night, which means they'll eat more. They'll eat every night, not just if it's dry, like it hasn't rained here till recently for the last month. They're not going to come up. But if you had a little sprinkler came on for 15 minutes every night, they'll come up and they'll eat. Then they'll breed because they're in close proximity to other ones. And I think you could make a huge, prolific bed of night crawlers to have them at any time you want for fishing bait. maybe sell some, maybe have enough. But I always remembered that a time when I was in Iowa, those enormous night crawlers. I mean, not 2 times bigger than a standard night crawler. I'm talking 3, 4 times. They were freak shows because of the high protein diet of the soybean meal that was drifting over there every night, and they'd come up and eat it. So what I'm thinking is, it'd be fun to do, and I'm going to do it, is set up a bed, put the night crawlers in there, and I've got a source I can get from some other wholesalers. They buy so many night crawlers from Canada that they get some small ones mixed in with it, and they package some of them up and sell them as what they call beaver tails, but they always have tons left over, and I can buy them pretty reasonable, so I'll just use them to, the juveniles, to inoculate this site. But if you want to have some fun, try it. I think it would be great. But the key is to have a lot of organic material there, to water it every day, to make sure that they'll come up every night, and to provide high-protein food and other different kinds of food so they'll mate and breed and multiply. I think you could raise and grow in a year under ideal conditions would probably maybe take 2-3 years in nature. So I think you could really get the whole thing going. This is my little story I want to share with you. I love worms. Have had a love affair with them ever since I was a kid, and I still do. Until the day I die, I'll love worms. They are just an incredible creature. What they do to the earth and everything is great. And the Canadian nightcrawler has got to be the granddaddy of them all. So I'll be doing some updates on it when I get the system set up. I'll do a video on it, but I just want to do a shout out to you people. If you're in an area like that, get some nice, set up an area and do that. And I think you might be surprised. I just talked to Dave. I just messaged him here a couple minutes ago. And I said, how is it going? He said he's going to be doing an update soon. Check out his video site. And he said, it's incredible, Larry. He goes out at night with a flashlight and it looks like snakes in there. I mean, because he keeps it watered and fed and puts in an ideal environment for them. When you have that, you're going to get those kind of results. If you like this kind of stuff, you know, I like to do interesting stuff. Subscribe to my channel. I sure appreciate it, guys and gals. And this is Larry up in Brandon, Minnesota again. Ciao.